Welcome to this special edition of Inside Leduc. Our guest today is Dawn Macdougall, running for the council of the City Leduc municipal election. Please listen in as she talks about the 4 pillars of her platform. Her many years of volunteer and business connection give rise to these 4 pillars. Election date is October 18th, so make sure you tune into all the candidate platforms so you can make the most informed decision for you. Hello, and welcome to this month's special edition of Inside Leduc. I am your host, Tarah Flynn. I would like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional meeting grounds, gathering place, and traveling route for many First Nations. We acknowledge many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. As a special edition, I wanted to give each of the candidates running for councillor a chance to share a little bit about themselves outside of door knocking and the forums that they have been on. So thank you and welcome, Dawn Macdougall. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so let's start off with a bit of who you are.
Oh my gosh, isn't that a complex question? Leave that open-ended. So I am a business owner here in the city of Leduc. I'm a resident of Leduc for the past 11 years. I am born and raised out of BC, and I have moved to a variety of places, Ontario, BC, Alberta, but this is where we call home. My husband and I have 2 children, a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old. Our 13-year-old girl is in junior high, and our 11-year-old is in elementary. So we are in the thick of youth issues here in the city of Leduc, youth personalities. As a business owner, I am a business development consultant. So I work with a lot of small and medium-sized businesses that traditionally don't have an HR department, but need a lot of that HR support, or they're looking for system support. Additionally, I also work with not-for-profits, and I help them with their operational structure and board development. So I'm kind of all over the place, jack of all trades. Let's call that a Jill of all trades.
There you go, right? That's awesome. So tell us why you're running for council and what is your vision here for Leduc?
Oh, man. So this is a double-edged sword because I actually ran in 2017, and the passion that I had in 2017 is still there. I care about our community and I care about improving it. And that's not to say that we are in a tailspin and we're in trouble and things need to be ridiculously changed upside down. I just believe in improvement, continuously looking to improve and add quality. I do think that there are a few things that are missing or could be added. And that's additionally what my platform this year is based upon. So the 4 key things on my platform are youth space. And what that would look like is not just, a big, huge $1 million building. We're talking about space for youth to be at. And that could be a room, it could be a hall, it could be something attached to, but I'm talking about an official space that is welcoming, that has programs, that is inclusive for all demographics, for all income brackets, regardless of your ability to pay for expensive athletic programs. And I'd like to see non-for-profits partnership work with that. So to be able to operate and be part of that facility or that space. Additionally, I'd like accessible and transparent leadership. So as a counselor, I'd be a part-time counselor, and I'm going to actually volunteer the hours. I'm going to disclose on a monthly basis the hours that I'd be working on the City of Leduc residents' behalf so that they understand where their tax dollars are going as a counselor. Additionally, I'd like to see more reporting on deliverables where our tax dollars are actually what they're resulting, the return on investment, what they're resulting in terms of numbers and specifics. Also, infrastructure enhancement. So what that looks like, first and foremost, one of the major issues that I'm caring about is getting a full-time counselor as part of our FCSS support staff team. I believe that mental health is a huge issue in our world, in our province, and in our community. And I'm actually tired of waiting for other levels of government to handle the issue even though it's in their purview. So I'd like to, get a counselor here in Leduc. Additionally, I'd like to be able to support our fire services a little bit more. And the fourth platform that I have is small business development, recovery, and ongoing support. And so that looks like bringing in specific programs and assistance and training that is catered to some of the industries in our community. We've got a bunch of dentists. Let's bring them together and get them very specific training for their office management team so that they can lead their team, because they're really great at being dentists, but they weren't always put through business school and taught how to be fantastic business leaders or overseers of the entire complex. So that's some of the things that I'd like to be able to do here in the city of Leduc.
Absolutely. So in regards to the FCSS, I have a question. What is it that we have now? Like when you say a full-time counselor, what does that look like?
So currently the Family and Community Support Services team, they would do an intake. And then based on your primary needs, what they are specialists at being able to connect the individual to resources in the community. If they don't already have the programs and services in-house, they will connect you to partnering services or non-for-profits that can offer those services. So where the gap is happening is we've got crisis in mental health, the hospital, early intervention. Then we've got long-term counseling where we've got programs and we've got counselors that are on board with somebody and working intimately with their lives. The middle ground that always seems to be missing is getting them from crisis to behavior counseling and getting them counseling that is implementing their behaviors and their choices. In that middle ground, what I would like to see is during that intake process at FCSS, if an individual is identified as needing counseling, the wait lists right now range from 3 to 6 weeks, depending on the individual, whether it's a child, whether it's man, whether it's woman, whether there are other issues that in play. Again, the counseling at this FCSS level wouldn't be crisis. We've got an emergency system. We've got facilities here in Alberta that deal with crisis. What I'm talking about is that integrated counseling service. So being able to say, you know what, we're going to book you in for counseling here. You're going to get your 1 hour session with counselor X, Y, and Z. And then after that, we're also going to connect you to some of the identified services that you already need. What's actually happening now is the team that's already there is there working the best that they can to provide support and resources. And I'd actually like to pull that from them to free them up to do what they do best, is that connection and that sourcing of resources.
That's awesome. I really love the research and the passion that you have behind that, because I didn't actually realize that was the flow of FCSS. So I really appreciate that.
Well, to be honest, I did spend 5.5 years with the FCSS advisory board and 4 of that as the chair. So I'm quite familiar with FCSS here in Leduc and what that team does and the amazing services and support that they offer to our city. It's like a little hidden gem, and there's opportunity in making sure that the city knows more about it. But yeah, I'm really passionate about FCSS.
That's awesome. Yes, for sure. I could see that, especially being the chair and everything. That's awesome. So what differentiates you from other candidates?
This is such a tough question because you don't want to throw anybody under the bus to be able to do it. And, there's so many people that are just waiting for those goodies and nuggets. Okay, so here's the deal. We are all just trying to make our community better. We all just have different perspectives about what that is and different priorities. I think one of the priorities that I have is the high level of mental wellness, not just mental health, mental wellness, the entire package, the ability to self-regulate, to make sure that you're dealing with issues, childhood traumas, the understanding of childhood issues and trauma, being trauma informed. I also spent 3 years with victim services here in Leduc, so I'm very aware of the impacts of both crime and trauma on an individual. And I really believe that we need to take more of a proactive approach to solving problems. Whereas we're not going to solve problems today, let's go further upstream. So that's my mentality when it comes to approaching issues in the city of Leduc. Don't get me wrong, there's still infrastructure, there's still economics. We still have to actively work to improve that because you need money in order to pay for all of the things that these great ideas are. And everybody's got great ideas, but who's cutting that check, right? So I think the first difference is that I want to go further upstream to be more proactive in handling issues. My acuity in the mental health and mental wellness. And then also, I believe that I represent an age demographic that is not necessarily present with our current council. I have 2 children, like I said, who are in the education system currently. So when we're talking youth issues, I'm living it. I'm living it and breathing it. And so if we're talking about issues that are impacting the youth, the fear, the trauma, the mental health, the wellness, the bullying, the anything, that I'm living that. I'm feeling that. I'm hearing about it with my kids or with friends of my children.
Mm-hmm. And that's a big part too, that you are, like, it's part of your life. So not only are you listening to the community, but you're in it and you're seeing it firsthand from friends that come over, or, you said it right. So that's definitely a key point, and something that's actually very true with our council that I never thought about. But as you're talking, I'm like, wait, you're right. You're right. It is a missing part. I think a lot of counselors, it's part of the conversation they have is that their kids are a little bit grown, so they have more time. Right. So it's an interesting perspective for that, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you mentioned your 4 platform ideas. So is there any other key priorities that you are having, or do you have anything to add for that?
Well, they're all encompassing, right? So something like transit, when transit is part of that infrastructure support, transit just doesn't solve commuting to back and forth. It allows access to lower income families to be able to access work, access school. After school transit enhancement would allow students of a lower income bracket to be able to commute to other side of the community. It decreases traffic flow in the entire area, which impacts environmental. So when you're looking at my platform and you're looking at those 4 key points, they're not just 4 standalone points. They're circular and they're connecting. So when we dial down on, a 3rd fire bay up in Leduc Industrial under infrastructure enhancement, well, what does that do? Well, that increases response times, brings our fire team into IAFF response times, and allows them to be able to access and respond to fires, especially up in Leduc Industrial, faster. It potentially gives an east side access to our fire trucks. But on an economic scale, what do you mean? Fire hall, how does that impact economics? We would have industrial and commercial businesses that have the ability now, when they go to pay insurance, they're now having lower insurance rates. I've talked to businesses that would have an insurance rate as low as $10,000 less every year because the fire hall is now within response time. So it isn't just looking at the issue and saying, okay, this is a singular issue. It only impacts this one group. But it impacts so many other things that has a trickle-down effect: safety, environment, and economics.
Mm-hmm. I actually didn't know that about insurance for other companies coming in, because we're zoned very like light industrial. That's what it's zoned for in the business park. So that's definitely would be a key thing for businesses coming in, for sure. I didn't realize that, but because everybody says on the east side, they want something east side, but they never quite correlate to that part either to bring in the businesses.
Right. So yeah. So in talking to some of those light industrial businesses, when they go to get their insurance and they're talking to an insurance broker or an insurance company, one of the issues that they're having is, okay, they always talk about, the business and what you have inside and what you're doing to protect and health and all of that. But then the question comes up in terms of fire response. Well, what is the time? Where's the lowest location? They pull it up on a map. Oh, okay, well, this is your insurance rate, because if you have a fire, we can predict the amount of damage that is reasonable to expect, and this is what we would be paying out.
That's awesome. Good research. I love that you're so researched and that you've had all these conversations and like you have a true platform in regards to that also. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if elected, what's your vision for creating healthy neighborhoods and communities?
Well, my first big issue would be that counselor, because that counselor starts to impact, again, we go further upstream, we start to impact mental health, we create access regardless of income, we start, closer to the roots, we start dealing with some of the trauma, especially post-pandemic. As we recover, typical Alberta, we have highs, we have lows, oil patch, even a fire in Fort Mac, right? That all of these issues weed at the economy, and then the economy kind of grows back. Pandemic did the same thing. It weeded out a lot of people's way of life, and people are making really informed choices. They're really taking time. We've had a lot of time. They're taking the time to really ask themselves, what do I want from my life? I've recognized things are important. I've lost family members, unfortunately, or I've been sick. I've lost my job, and it used to be my identity. So coming out of the pandemic, I think people are going to realign and reevaluate where they want to head with their life. And while we all need to chase economic, prosperity, I think it's important that we do that from a healthy position. So to go and chase that 6-figure check again and book ourselves up to the oil patch, up in Fort Mac, and live 3 weeks in and 1 week out, quality of life, you had an opportunity to impact it. And while I understand we have bills to pay, I think there's an opportunity to restructure our lives. And so post-pandemic, I think that's going to happen. So we still need the balance of the mental wellness. We need infrastructure. We need to be planning for development, because we are going to come out of this and have a big, huge boom in many of the communities and areas in our entire country, in our world. And I think one of the ways that Leduc can capitalize on that is doing it from a healthier, community-minded standpoint, where we are aware of each other's issues and plights, and the mental health piece, the stigma behind mental health. Hey, listen, you just survived 19 months of a pandemic. People in your life died, almost died. You lost your job. You had to relocate. Let's pile that list on. There's a lot of grief and trauma that I think we need to deal with. And so having connection and coming back together in community and connection in healthy ways, learning how to agree in respectful manners. This polarizing idea in the past few months has just divided us even more than we were before. So yeah, community is essential in being able to come out of anything, but I really think it's important that we all do it from an individual place of mental wellness.
Yeah. I love that you're like trauma, because as much as it's mental health, there is trauma to losing your job or not being able to afford life. Like it is a traumatic experience. So I love that you're phrasing it that way as well, because it's going to help alleviate the stigma from the words. Because you think trauma, you think like
harsh.
Right.
You think, right? You think vehicle collision, body being tossed everywhere. You think violence, but trauma is really just a dislodging of where you were, and something interrupts that, or a repetitive bang, 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 bang over and over again of dysfunction. And really trauma is grief, and unresolved trauma is where addictions and disconnection come from, and distorted ways of thinking and belief systems. So yeah, we need to, as a society, remove the stigma behind mental health wellness and really look at healing whatever trauma it was, whatever grief or whatever loss you had. If we can work through that, then we can start to work through and be able to have conversations about almost any issue.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. No, for sure. Because I don't think people really, well, I know I didn't see it as like trauma, but it's truthfully trauma. It's not just mental health. It's not just depression, but there's trauma. So that's amazing. And thank you for bringing up that word. And I really do hope that through all of this, and I do believe that it's happening already, the stigma, because people are having to reach out for help and having more conversations. And over time, I really hope that it becomes more okay for people. So that's awesome. So do you have any parting words for our listeners?
I just want people to vote. I mean, voter engagement has always been an issue, regardless of what type of election, what level of government. I think it's important. We talk about such as a time as this, and, post-pandemic, what are we going to do? Well, I know I've never lived through anything like the time that we're living through right now, and I have a selfish need for you to go out and vote and potentially check me. I mean, I'm just going to put that out there. Hey, I would love your vote. But I would also say, just from a civic-minded individual, get informed and find out, because the people that are selected, that are elected, they will be making choices at a level that is unprecedented in terms of how we recover and rebound from the pandemic, the division, the divisiveness of our entire community, province, and country. It's obvious that at a federal, provincial, and even municipal level, we are dealing with issues that you can't run from. We have to be handling and making decisions. And I would encourage everybody to get informed and, find one candidate that you check and you get behind. If you find more, great. But the idea here is that find out what issues everybody's advocating for and pick a candidate that speaks to some of the things that are important to you. Because I always say this to our kids, use your voice or you lose your voice. And if you don't use it, then for the next 4 years, we say this every time, you don't have anything to complain about. Other people say it a little bit more rudely, but it's true. Unfortunately, for the next 4 years, you're going to be impacted by the decisions of somebody else if you don't decide and make a decision. And legislation says that your employer's got to give you time off to do it, so there's no excuses.
I actually didn't know that either, but yes. Okay. I didn't know that either. That's awesome.
Yes, they do.
That's awesome. Yeah. See, and I see out of all the politics, federal, provincial or municipal, I really like the municipal because you see it more. It is in the roads you drive every day. It's in the businesses that you shop at. There's so like municipal government is right there in front of you every day versus, it feels like there's less red tape. So you actually get to see what is happening with the municipal government. And I find that so much more intriguing and involving for, this community with municipal. So I really hope that creating this and having everybody listen, hopefully will help support municipal government and have the voter turnout be higher. So
yeah, you would hope so, because here in Alberta, we always have that, when it comes to a federal election, my vote doesn't matter, decision's already made, right? Well, in Alberta municipal government, it does matter. It absolutely matters. Your tax dollars are going where? They're going to be decided by 7 individuals, 6 councillors and a mayor. Then maybe you should have a hand, use your voice or lose your voice in how this money and how this revenue and all this and all of these decisions and programs and services are going to be dealt with, decided, and spent. So yeah, use it or lose it.
That's awesome. No, it's a good phrase for this for sure. So that's awesome. And thank you so much for coming on today's episode. It has been truly a pleasure chatting with you and seeing how researched and educated and passionate you are on your platform ideas. So thank you so very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I love that you have done this and made it accessibility. That's the thing, right? You've made it accessible to any of your listeners or anybody that we then now share with. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm passionate and happy to talk about local government at any level.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.